Okay, so welcome to Scrum Masters of the Universe. We appreciate y'all spending some time with us. Welcome, everyone. So our mission, we believe that there's great value in getting out of our silos and connecting with others such as yourselves who are passionate about growth as an Agile practitioner, and our goal is to provide a place for Agile enthusiasts to learn, grow, and flourish in applying Scrum and Agile in the world of work. So that's our mission statement. Ways to connect with us. If you're here, you already know about our meetup page because that's how you got here. That's really our primary way to connect with people, but we also have other ways as well. So we have the socials covered. You see our LinkedIn page there. Virtually all of our recordings are made available on YouTube, either the same day or the next day. Maybe a little bit of a lag, but Jamie does a great job of producing those there so you can catch this recording and share it with others after the fact. We also have a presence on Discord. So if you want to go interact with other members of Scrum Masters of the Universe, you can do that on our Discord server there. And then we also have a presence on Twitter, or is it X yet, or is it still Twitter? I forget. I'm not a big tweeter.
Still Twitter.
So will we be Xers then? Will you X instead of tweet? I don't know.
No,
all right, moving on.
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah.
Okay, our leadership team, our fearless leader, Jamie. So she's here with us. So thanks, Jamie, for coming. Myself, Mary Nagami, Jeff Colvin, Donna Reynolds, Anu, and our newest member, Marco Burville. So that's our leadership team. Feel free to reach out to us. We'd all love to connect with you. So I think Jeff's putting some links in the chat there for that. Upcoming events. We are slated out until the fall. We have got a lot of great speakers that are coming up. You see the bit.ly link there, so be sure and go to our meetup page. Look at all the wonderful events that are coming. We've got a lot planned for y'all. Okay, thank you to our sponsors. Boy, our sponsorship just continues to grow and grow. Look at all these names. Want to make a special call out to two of our newest sponsors, FlowSphere. That's hard to say. I had to really think about what I'm saying there. FlowSphere with professional Scrum trainer Nagesh Sharma. He's been a guest on Scrum Masters of the Universe before with VisiAgi. The visual agilist, also a professional Scrum trainer, Francesco Bianchi. So they are our newest two sponsors. So Jeff, if you can post those links if you haven't already in there for them. And please visit our sponsors because they really provide us with everything. This community can't exist without some level of sponsorship, or else Jamie and the rest of the leadership team would go broke trying to afford all that. So we appreciate our sponsors allowing us to bring higher value to everybody. Okay, just want to highlight the Agile Mastery Institute with Jeff Watts. So if you want to get something beyond just a 2-day certification experience, Jeff Watts does have a 6-month combination of workshops, group coaching, practical application, reflection reading, video modules, community support, and also a smartphone app, y'all. All available through the Agile Mastery Institute. And just want to call out that our fearless leader, Jamie Kriegel, she is now an official guide of Agile Mastery Institute. So congratulations to Jamie. So looking forward to seeing you.
So you'll start, yeah, look forward to planning some classes for September, some cohorts, as we call them, actually, starting in September. So you'll be the first to know. So keep an eye out for that. If you'd like to be amongst the first of my students, I'd love it.
So become one of Jamie Kriegel's minions. Be one of the first ones.
I don't know about minions.
Okay, it's just a few deals. Y'all, you know, we've got deals. OptiLearn 15% off any of the training courses that you see listed there. Let me move over to the slide there. Sorry about that. Yeah, so look at all those training courses. They're certifications that are available through scrum.org. OptiLearn, Ryan Brook is with, he's been a guest and he's also a sponsor. 15% off using that coupon code of SMO215. Yeah, so I highly suggest Ryan as well. I've been to his training classes and he does an excellent job. Agile, you can get a 20% off discount using the coupon code SMO2 for the Scrum Mastery pathway. And then also our friend Daria Bagina at Scrum Mastered, 15% discount if you use the code SMO2 on her store there, store.scrummastered.com. I've used some of Daria's materials myself, and so I can attest that they are very high quality, and she really puts the time in to make sure that they're useful. So go check out those deals from our sponsors. All right, y'all, Scrum Day, it's coming up quick, September 14th. Up in the beautiful Madison, Wisconsin. I've never been there, but I am going to be there. Jamie is going to be there. I understand Jeff is going to be there, Anu. So we're going to have a big presence for Scrum Masters of the Universe. Yeah, so let's look. So September 14th, and look at the speakers that are there. These aren't all the speakers, but you get the big man of scrum.org himself, Dave West, in the lower right-hand corner. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Todd and Ryan from Your Daily Scrum, Gunther Verheyen, and then you've got Chad Bayer of Mad City Agile, and then Keith McCandless is also going to be there, the co-developer of Liberating Structures, and he's doing a session coming up with Scrum Masters of the Universe that you don't want to miss. So Scrum Day, so one-day event, very affordable. So yeah, check it out. Hopefully we'll see you there. All right, so here we are. We're at where we come to our speaker, and let me see here. Give me just a second here.
Charlene did have a request if we everybody who's willing to put themselves out there on camera, to put themselves on camera so we can capture a screenshot.
Oh yeah, here's your chance if you want to be put on LinkedIn and put on social networking, social sites. Be sure and turn your camera on. And before I introduce Charlene, I guess we'll pause then really quick.
Probably have to stop sharing then so we can see everybody.
Oh, good point. There we go. Okay, who's going to take the screenshot?
I will.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. All right, we'll count down from 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Thanks, Jamie. All right, so now let me get back over and share my screen again. Oh, here we go. All righty, there's the lovely Charlene. So Charlene's worked with information technology for over 20 years and holds many roles such as Safe Scrum Master, Technical Scrum Master, Software Quality Leader, QA Engineer, Project Manager, Agile Transformation Leader, Release Manager, DevOps Analyst, Confluence and Jira Admin, Product Support Analyst, and just all around Wonder Woman. She's been working within the Agile space since 2009 and a Scrum Master since 2016, and she holds certification for CSM, Safe SM, CSPO, and KMP. All right, and I just want to say Charlene's active in the Atlanta IT community, and she's also director of mentorship and coaching at the new Simply Agile community. So join now and take part of a new free mentor talk session. So Jeff, if you can post in there, the link is just simplyagile.me is the site. So now I am going to stop sharing and the stage is yours, Charlene.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everybody for the opportunity, for Jamie, Mark, Jeff, all of you guys for giving me this opportunity. And I want to say hello to everybody. Thank you for joining today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Bear with. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, ma'am. Looks great.
Let me move this up just a second.
I'm not sure if you want to put it in presentation mode. There you go.
I'm working on it. It's trying to the Zoom bar got in the way. I apologize. All right. So I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to talk about working agreements today. Tell you a little bit about me. I am a native Atlantan. This little timeline is a cool thing. I just show some pictures that talks about me in an informal way. I started in information technology quite a few years ago. Some of my since I've lived in Atlanta all my life, a lot of the companies are all going to be from here. My first introduction into anything Agile was when I worked at IHG. And that's where I basically was a project manager and a QA engineer. And my introduction to using Agile Scrum framework was at IHG. And then I left there and I went and worked at, I cannot get that to move over. I'm so sorry. I worked at CNN Digital for a while where I was a QA engineer and a Scrum Master. I worked at Equifax for a number of years where I was also a Scrum Master and a QA engineer. And that's when I got my certifications. So that's why I have a little Scrum Master picture. And I went from there and worked at NCR as a technical Scrum Master. And then I did some consulting for a while. And now I'm working at FleetCor. My official title at FleetCor is an Agile coach. But I work as an Agile coach over 2 divisions, and I am the Scrum Master over 2 teams. I'm also very proud to be part of their Agile transformation at FleetCor. I'm part of the transformation team, and which involves not just being a Scrum Master in the Agile piece, but also the tooling. So I'm helping to do system design for some global tooling such as Jira and Confluence. I became an Agile coach while working at FleetCor, and now I am also still working at FleetCor, but I'm also in the leadership group at our new Agile community called Simply Agile. I would love for everybody to join. I want to say the CEO of Simply Agile is on the call today. His name is Nelson Engel. You can ping him, but we would love to have you be a part of our initial platform. All right, thank you. This is some fun facts about me. I am a boxer dog mom. These are my 2 dogs. Unfortunately, the one on the right passed away in June, but we still have our boxer pit mix, Toffee. Her name is Toffee Jean, and she is just a cutie pie. I love to cruise. I love to gamble in my spare time. I'm a blackjack player. And that's a picture of my favorite slot machine, dancing drums, and I'm learning to play craps. So just a little fun note about me when I'm not working. So today, let's talk about our agenda. What is a working agreement? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about when a working agreement should be created and also what you want to include in a working agreement. I'll also have an example to show, and I will be sharing the example, or someone from the group here will be sharing an example probably through email or in our meetup.com space or YouTube. I'm not sure, but they will get it to you. We're going to talk about elements to exclude from a working agreement, and then when to maintain a working agreement and how to get team acceptance and adherence to it. And then we'll have a Q&A session. And I do want to mention that I have some time after the slotted time. If people need to stay on for Q&A, that's okay. All right, so let's start. So my first thing I want to talk about is this is my disclaimer. And I'm saying this because this is the way that I use a working agreement, the way that I go and create one. It is not the only way. This is one way. So I'm saying that because I want to encourage you to maybe use this as a template and add your own data elements. The tools I'm going to talk about is what we use at my company. It's not the cure-all. You may have other tools, and I want you to be able to think about how you can amend it to use your tools and your team's perspective about what elements they want to add. This is not the only way. So I want to just say that. And I will provide the example, as I said earlier. So that's kind of my disclaimer. All right. So let's talk about what a working agreement is. A working agreement is a contract that can help all of the people within the team have a unified way that they will follow Scrum and how they're going to work together. And it's very important to me because if you don't have the people on your team being able to kind of unify together, it's going to be difficult for them to work together. So these are some great benefits of it. It does increase alignment. It also fosters trust. And I'm very excited to say this has been a very useful tool, especially for a new team or a team that has basically been put together with other people that are in other teams and now they're forming a new team. Or if it's something that you have an existing team and you're just maybe need that help to unify them together. Okay. And how it supports Scrum values. So I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with our 5 Scrum values: courage, focus, commitment, respect, and openness. You can see, obviously, here are the benefits. More importantly, I will say from all of this is probably the shared vision and goal value for commitment. That really, to me, is what I foster and help foster the most within my teams. Get them into, alignment together. Another, in the openness, transparency. It does lead to the retrospective when you do inspecting and adaptation, but being able to host this and keep your working agreement in some sort of place that everyone can access. For example, at my company, we use Confluence. So that's something that everyone can access and everyone can get to. Okay. And does anyone have any questions so far?
Nothing in the chat yet.
Okay. Just checking. Feel free to post your questions in chat, and I'll pause every now and then and we'll address them. How does the working agreement line up with psychological safety? Well, obviously, it will help our team, have a voice. That's important. Extends trust. Being able to have people create and be innovative with how their ideas need to come to fruition of how they can work together. More importantly is number 7. It is going to look at it as a learning problem, not an execution problem. We're going to learn about how we can work together. And it's not an execution problem as much as it is thinking about how we can work together. Okay. When to create a working agreement this is based upon the Tupman stages of team development. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with this. You probably are if you're a Scrum Master already. As teams come together, we know that the first stage is forming. This is a good time to do it. That's why I have the star there. So the stars are by each stage that I recommend. It's not the cure-all, but this is what I recommend when you want to create one. Maintaining one is throughout the whole cycle. So when they're forming, they're storming, and they're norming, they're trying to get their gel, they're trying to get their jam, how they're going to work together. They're getting used to one another. Maybe pop in some team building activities, something where you can actually get them to gel and be unified. This would be a good time to create that working agreement. Okay. So let's talk about some things that I include on my working agreement and some things I recommend. And so the next few slides are going to go over that. For my teams, even though it's not official at my company, we do like for the team to have a bonding team activity where they come up with a team name and a logo. So one of the things I let them do is get the suggestions out of what they want their team name to be. And then I create a poll and then we all vote on it. And then I will go out on the internet and find a cool logo, or I'll find multiple logos and let them vote on those. So the most important part of this is it helps to have some creativity, unity, and self-expression. And it's a really fun team building activity, and it helps people come out of their shell. And one of the things that on the quick tip I want to say is if you do polls or any kind of voting, please make it anonymous so that people don't feel that pressure that they have to vote a certain way, or it might be a cultural thing, because we do have people that work on my teams that are all over. My company is global. I have people from not only offshore, like in India, but also in Croatia, Belarus, Canada, Mexico. They're all over, as well as many, many states within the US. So one of the things I always focus on when we talk about any kind of voting or polling is keeping it anonymous for that reason. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on. Another element I like to include is the company values. So it's not only important to talk about the Scrum values, but also the company values. Your company may have values listed on their main website, and I think that's important to remind the team of those. So one way you can do that is just grab a screenshot of them and post them on the working agreement and review them. Make sure that they line up. And then also, as well as the Scrum values, we might want to talk about the team values. Is there anything that's really important to the team? And again, we have the voting system to help define that. Core hours. Now, this is a big one, especially because I have people in so many time zones. So when I say core hours, I don't mean the normal 8 to 5 that the person on your team will be working. It's the core hours are the time that all the team members are going to be online, that you can, as a Scrum Master, schedule meetings. So that way you can establish that across the team and everybody knows that between this time and this time that I can contact anybody on the team and they'll all be online, or set up a meeting, whatever you need to do. I do also include a link to the team calendar here. Now, for me, for my teams, we use Confluence for a lot of our work. And one of the things that we do is I created a calendar in Confluence for people on my team to post their time off, because I would like to know when they're going to be out for capacity tracking. So this is something that I would put this link to the calendar on our team working agreement, because I want people to agree upon they're going to be able to use this calendar to post their time off, and everyone can know it's a one-stop shop for everybody on the team to go to be able to access this link to know when their teammate is going to be off to cover for them. And as far as the time off, I do post on their instructions for how to handle time off request. Obviously, who needs to know, who's going to be informed, who's going to back each other up, whatever you need to do. And again, the quick tip, basically you want to put your team calendar and this information somewhere where everybody can access it and edit it and update it. It could be Confluence, it could be SharePoint, or it could be, whatever you guys use as your tool. Okay. All right. It's not clicking. There we go. Communication. So this is a key one, especially for people that are in multiple locations. And by the way, my teams are hybrid. A lot of us are still working from home and we're all over the place location wise. So when we have a problem, let's say they found a production issue, how do we handle it? What's the primary point of communication? So everybody knows, let's say, for example, it's Slack or Teams. Everybody knows they probably should have that downloaded to their phone because they're not going to be on their work laptop all the time. That's something that we do at my company, so that if there is an issue, we have one point of communication, one channel, and everyone will know. And then you want to determine basically within your communication on your working agreement, what is the response time? So for example, if there's a production issue and somebody reaches out on Slack, one of my teams, we determine that if there should be a response time from somebody in our team within 1 hour, and that's documented in the working agreement. If they don't respond within an hour, how do we handle that? How do we escalate? How do we handle emergencies? All that should be defined and agreed upon. And also support for other teams. It's not, we have a lot of dependencies within our stories and with our work. And if there's something that comes up within an emergency that we're dependent on another team, this is the place where we go and identify that and put that in your working agreement. Does this make sense? Are there any questions here? And you guys can feel free to come off mute. This is not a one-way conversation.
I think currently in the chat.
Okay. Do we have
Be
a question?
careful what you ask for, Charlene.
I'm okay with that. I like to have conversation. Do we have any questions in the chat so far? Okay, thank you. So now the next thing we want to include in our working agreement is the sprint information. And I'm talking about the events or the ceremonies. So one of the things that I do is basically I try to start and stop the sprint. We have 2-week sprints, put the length in here, and then start and stop them on the same day of the week, within like every Tuesday or every other Wednesday, and then document that. And then if we have specific event days and times, we put that in there. So for my teams, we have refinement, every Monday for this one team and maybe every Friday for this other team. But I put that out there so they know that those meetings are standard across what day of the week. And we try to identify a good time for everybody based upon their availability and our core hours. And then also we have something that I created called team time, when we have to basically all swarm together to work on a problem, and how we want to identify when we would have those. That's kind of an ad hoc basis. Team time is optional because we may not need everybody on the team and it may not be a consistent time. But I want to say it is good to be consistent on the start and stop sprints on the same day of the week at the same time if you can. So for example, you want to have your daily stand-up probably at the same time every day. This is a standard Scrum Master practice, I would think. You want to have your sprint review probably the same time or the sprint planning, same time every 2 weeks or whatever the frequency of your sprints are. Okay. The other thing
We have a question.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's go back. What's the question?
So Camille wants to know if you have any recommendations for a good voting or polling site.
I do. I use Zoom polling, to be honest with you. I create my polls ahead of time on my personal Zoom link within my work Zoom. Also, there is Poly. If you use Slack, you can add an app called Poly or Poly, Poly, and you can create some polls there. But I will caution you, that one is free to use for so many polls and then it ends. So I've been more successful using Zoom polls than anything. Okay.
All right, you got one more.
Okay.
Rondi asks, let's see, she asks, any recommendations for scheduling sites, something other than Doodle? So Rondi, I'm not sure if you want to expand on that. You can bring yourself off mute.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So I'm wondering, sometimes we have to get a poll for times that our people are available to meet up, and we use Doodle. And when you go to doodle.com, there's a whole bunch of ads, and I think it's messing up my computer. So I really don't like Doodle. So I was wondering if you had any suggestions for trying to see when people are available to meet, things like that.
I have never used Doodle, so I'm sorry I'm not familiar. But I actually don't poll the time. I have a meeting with all the team and have a discussion amongst each person's time zone of when they are available. Then we all on a live meeting discuss it and then narrow it down to a times, like, a start and end time every day when everybody's, and then we use that as the standard that goes in the working agreement. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
I think that's it for now. We have some good comments on there too,
All
so be
right.
sure and check the chat, y'all.
I just dropped in some platforms that are helpful for scheduling calendars.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'll check that out. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about definition of ready. This is the next thing we want to define as a team. Now, we use Jira. Let me say that at my company. Not everybody uses Jira, so I put that parentheses. It might be a different tool that you use. But we want to talk about what has to be our defined definition of ready. and have everybody on the team agree to it. So this is a live meeting. It's not a poll where we do this working agreement and we come up with suggestions from the team of what is going to be their definition of ready for their team. So I'll give you an example. So one of the things that we do is talk about it has to have, a bullet point list of items that has to be completed. So you have to have story points on the ticket. You have to have an assignee. You have to have a fixed version date, for example. All these things are listed out, and then make sure there's no impediments. There might be a dependency, but the dependency cannot be on this ticket. It might be another person's dependent on ours. So you have to be careful about how you use the word dependency here, but make sure that, everyone on the team agrees this is every bullet point list item that has to be, checked off of a JIRA ticket, so to speak, or whatever tool you use before you bring it into a sprint. So I want to say this, there's a lot of teams that think, well, we'll just start doing research on something. We'll just bring it into the sprint. So I'm a big advocate of not bringing any story into a sprint unless it is ready to be worked on. So we have a ticket type that we use called Spike. So if you have something that you need to do some research on, you can bring the Spike in, but not the story until you're ready. But that's just the way that we work. So I want to use that disclaimer. But I wonder if anyone has any specific things of definition of ready, and hold off on that. You can put it in the chat, but I want to share my example and you'll see my team's definition of ready in a minute. So we'll just go on with the rest and then we'll come back and take a break when I show you the example. Okay. Definition of done.
We got
Yes.
a question from Renee. Would you create the definition of ready with a fresh team, or wait until we have already a feeling for of work for the team?
That's a good point. That is a great question. So if you have a new team, I would wait a little while until they're actually actively working on the work and then come up with this. If you have someone that's a lead dev or more technical, high experienced person that's on the team, they're probably going to help lead this discussion and know what needs to be on there. But know this, as a whole, the working agreement is a live document. It is not the end all the first time you create it. We're going to talk about that later in our talk here, but it is something that you will revisit. You should revisit with your team and also update as things change, as projects change for the team, as ways of working change. Okay. So it is a live document. Good question. So next we're going to talk about definition of done. I think this is crucial. And this is similar to the definition of ready, but it's what needs to be done before you can say it's ready to be released. Okay. And many people have definitions of, let me say this, the word done can be many things to many people. So I worked at a company where they had done and then done. And I'm like, why are we doing this? So we need to define what all is the definition of done. And to me, for my teams at my company, done means it is ready to be released to production. So what is everything that has to go through this work on this story before it can be called done? For example, the QA testing has to be completed and there's no known open issues. That is just one bullet item for done. There's a lot more, and I'll show you that in my example. But the point I'm getting at is this is what we're going to talk about with the team during the working agreement meeting, and they're all going to decide as a team what they consider to be done. Okay. I have a template that's created for new teams for definition ready and definition done that we give out to all the Scrum Masters, and they have a starting point, and then from there they work with their teams and add other elements to it for their team's specific definition of ready and definition of done. Okay.
Would that be something you'd be willing to share with us?
Absolutely. No problem. You'll get that in the example when I send it out. Okay. We do want to make sure, again, like for my teams, the definition done should include any activity that needs to happen before the release process. Now that's for my team. Your definition done may be different, but just keep that in mind. That's the focus. Okay. Code reviews. I think this is very important to put something about the code reviews because you want to level set across the team how to handle a code review. Like, for example, do you have a code review process already in place? Do you have it identified as you're going to have 1 or 2 or whatever number of approvers? Do you use a certain tool to do code reviews like Bitbucket? Or do you use something that's integrated, or do you use something in GitLab? I don't know. Everybody's different, and I want to make that clear. It could be whatever tools you use, but you do want to list at least the process. So if you say that you want to move a ticket to dev complete, it has to have a code review. What is the process of the code review? I would list the number of approvers, whether it's 1, 2, whatever. If it's a role, put on there the dev lead has to be an approver. If you use Bitbucket or whatever tool, you want to list that. And then the frequency and timing. So if you say that it has to be reviewed by 2 people, by, let's say it needs to be reviewed within X number of days after the code is submitted to be reviewed. That would be something that you would determine and establish with your teams. And this is where you would add that to your working agreement. Okay. And also just keep in mind, there may be some standards or guidelines from your company, and you want to make sure your team is following that. So I would revisit that with your company's specific company's guidelines to make sure your team is in line. Okay. Any questions about the code review? Okay. Source of truth. This is a really big one. So when someone on our team is looking for the number one place that they can go to find out what is going on with our increment of work within our sprint, we want to identify that. So for my team, we list the first and second source of truth. Okay, so the first source of truth for my team is going to be Jira. The second would be Confluence. And then from there, it would go into the code repository. But the point I'm getting at for this one is we want to identify for you guys that are creating this for your teams, where is the one place that you want as your Scrum Master for your teams to go to find out whatever is going on with whatever feature change. Where's the first place you go to? And it could be that it's not Jira, maybe it's Azure or Rally, whatever you're using. But you want to list out the source of truth. What's the first place, maybe the second place, if you need that. If not, just a first place. List out the tools, whatever you use to access to get to that. And then make sure that wherever it is, the source of truth is available and being transparent for everybody on the team to get to. Okay? Anyone have a question about the source of truth? Okay. All right, no questions. Okay, so for my team, because we use Jira, I like to detail out for everyone to understand the ticket type definitions. This also includes some workflow. So when you have someone new on the team, they kind of understand what the workflow process is for each ticket type. So for example, I make it very clear that we use a ticket type of, story, task, bug, whatever is the standard, but we also use a ticket type of spike. So that way, when you have someone new that comes to the team, or maybe you have some additional person that's been added to your team, and maybe their workflow is different on a previous team for them, they come to your team, they know what is the workflow and the ticket types that we use. It's more of a training type situation for people to understand how we flow within Jira. Now, again, keep in mind, it could be that you use a different tool, and that's fair and understandable. You just might want to list your tools information here, really just for the teams to know if you use a ticket type of story or task or whatever you use, and just list that out here. Okay. Estimation. How do you use story points? And this is very subjective. Everyone uses it probably. There is a lot of people who follow Fibonacci, but not everybody does. And there are some instructions about how we use are agreed estimation types. And I list that out in a pretty good detail. You're going to see that on the example. So please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, this is what my team follows. It is not, it's a little bit different. It's not going to be the standard. So I want to make sure that, everybody understands that when they see it, and know that you use whatever applies to your team. But we do identify what we call deal breakers. So for my teams, we do not bring in anything in that has a story over 8 points, because we've split that. We have identified that is our threshold, so to speak, as far as story points goes. And then we also identify things like, let's say you have a bug. Do you put a 0 on a bug? Do you ever use a 0 story point? I don't know. This will be something you identify here for your teams. Okay. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to put on a bug. I'm here to just say you want to list whatever you decide on your working agreement. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I can't see the chat, so you guys can tell me.
You're good.
Okay. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Process of handle defects. So when your QA people are testing on your team, how do they handle defects? This is a very important part. I have learned through, I've learned the hard way. This is a good thing to put in the working agreement. I'll say that. We want to talk about, how do you manage it? What if you find a defect when you're testing and the story you're testing is in the sprint? How do you handle that? Or let's say you're testing something and it's outside the sprint. Believe it or not, people do that. And that's also considered. What if you're testing something that's in production? How do you handle that? What is the issue type that you use in JIRA? What's the process that it goes through? But we want to make sure that we include role-based actions to be followed. So for example, if you say, I have a issue that I found in the tickets inside the sprint, you want to say that you're going to move the ticket back to in progress and assign it to developer. You wouldn't say, I'm going to put it back to in progress and assign it to, John Doe. You would have to say their role, not their name, because team members can change, but the roles should not. So I want to say that's a very good tip to think about there. Okay. And I will love to hear if you have any other ways that you would want to manage defects. When I show you the example, we can go through that. Sharing your team metrics. It's very important for the team to know how they're going to be measured. You want to list the metric name. We want to explain to them. So for my teams, we use a team dashboard out of JIRA for some of the metrics, the majority of them. And I have a template that I have created for the Scrum Masters to use at my company for how they create their team dashboard. It has the major metrics on them. So we refer to that. We put a link to the dashboard in this part of the working agreement, and everybody can get to it. And so we want to explain how they will be measured so they understand, and let them answer any questions they may have during the working agreement meeting so everybody understands that, especially because it's based upon possibly their performance review. Okay. Best practices for working together. This one is a very big subjective one because it could be anything. So there's no limit. So it should follow some of the Agile principles, but not always. So a lot of them will say things like they want to fail fast. That's one of the items that's on mine. How they can work better together. They want to be respectful to one another. Maybe one of the ones that I love they came up with was collective ownership. So there's no blame game. I love that. I have a great rock star team that has very much worked very hard on their best practices, and they take collective ownership of everything. It's not just, John's problem or Jane's problem. It is the whole team, and they all work together to come up with a solution. So this will help to create some unified synergy within the team and build trust. Okay. All right. So now we're ready for the example. Bear with me 1 minute. Now I have this in Word and PDF, but I'm going to show you the Word document because it's a little bit better to see. It doesn't cut off the link. So it came from Confluence, but I put it in Word just to be able to view it better. But this is an example of a live working agreement for one of my teams. They are
Charlene,
called.
you're sharing still the PowerPoint, not the Word
Oh,
document.
I'm so sorry. Let me fix that. Thank you for telling me. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for telling me. Okay, so this is a live working agreement that I took off of Confluence for my Data Advantage team. They came up with the name of Innovators. I found this really cool logo on the internet and they love it. And that was a fun team building activity. There's the company values from our company website for Fleet Corps. Okay. Here's our Scrum Values, which is a good thing, just a picture that helps remind everybody. This is a good opportunity as a Scrum Master when you do the working agreement meeting with them to go over for everybody to understand the Scrum Values. Okay. Then we go into what's called the team norms and guidelines. This is our core hours section. And because we're in multiple time zones, and I'm the one who schedules the meeting, and I'm in EST, they're all based upon EST. And then everyone does the conversion that was agreed upon. We do have a link to our calendar here, and then how you managed an unplanned out of office. So everybody agreed upon that. Okay. Communication. We have a Teams. We went from Slack to Teams. We're in the middle of moving to that right now. So what's the first point of contact? And that's our Teams channel. And I put a link to the channel here for the team to use. And then how do you do if nobody responds, right? So then we talk about on-call. We have an on-call list that lives in an app called Box that we use. Here's a link to our old Slack channel, which that'll probably go away after this month, in our new Teams channel. And we use Zoom. We identified that we use Zoom for meetings still, and that's the standard across our company. The next section, it shows the sprint length and ceremonies. This is pretty standard stuff. Okay. Talks about our different meetings and how often. If you notice, I don't have dates. This one is the only one that has a time, just because this is every day at the same time. Okay. Here's our definition of ready that we agreed upon for all of our tickets as a team. Again, this is all related to my team specifically, not the cure-all for everybody, but this is a good start. Okay. We talk about tasking stories. We do that because we add subtask stories so that we can manage our capacity better. That's just something we follow as a team. Here's our definition of done. Okay. Right. Then we have our code review process. And again, please put links in there. You don't have to type everything out, but we refer to other things that are already documented. Okay. Here's our source of truth. Right. Our JIRA issue types, and we talk about, and I have a link to more JIRA documentation that shows all the workflows on another Confluence page. So again, it's just helpful to use links and not put all of the writing on one place. That's why I love Confluence. It refers to itself everywhere. And we talk about the different things about a spike and how we're going to make sure we're pointing it before we bring it into a sprint, for example. Okay. We agreed upon this is our estimation, our story points. We follow Fibonacci, but this is for my team specifically. We have a time listed here, but we start here, then we add if we have complexities and unknowns, and that equals to relative pointing. That's how we follow it. So it's very detailed. It does include dev and QA. And the exact story point value, we do not go over an 8. Okay. It's pretty clear, and the team agreed upon all this. We have our process for our defects, how we handle them inside, outside the sprint. We have our metrics that they're measured on for performance. And then we have a link to our team dashboard. Okay. And this is our principles of how we work together as a team that everyone agreed upon. And that is it for the working team agreement. And again, like I said, I'll be sharing this out. And so I know, I just realized it's close to time and I haven't finished all my PowerPoint. I'm so sorry, but I want to stop and take a break here and see if anybody has questions.
Yeah, Anu did have a question
Okay.
here. She said, you mentioned working agreement is a living document. How
Yes.
often do you edit it? Is there a time frame that has worked for you?
Yes, I actually have that. If I can take 2 seconds, I'll show you on the slide. Things that exclude, I just don't want to do specific mentions and names and put roles only. The maintenance, this is the answering to this question. Typically during a sprint retro, we revisit our working agreement, see if there's any changes, and I update it live with the team to promote transparency. And to gain acceptance, we use a poll, or we have people like the Confluence page or maybe tag themselves. There's different ways you can do that. I actually created a Jeopardy game with my team to test their working knowledge of it in a future retro. And here's a link to the Jeopardy Labs. That's a free, well, let me say it's free to a certain point. When you want to create, it's like $20 and that's it. So I would encourage everybody looking into that. The agreement adherence, to be able to get people to adhere to it, is to basically visit it during the retro. If you have people that are just point blank not adhering to it, you can coach them when they start to have pushback. But I will tell you, as a rule, the team will actually start to self-manage and say, well, Bob, you need to follow it because it's in our working agreement. You'll see that people will start to speak up and say that. Okay. And then here's my contact info. And that's all I have. Is there any other questions?
And
Great
what point in
job,
time
Charlene.
does,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was saying, at what point in time does the working agreement become too cumbersome? Too much.
Well, that's
time
decided amongst your team. So when you say too cumbersome, what do you mean by that?
It's just, three Confluence pages worth of stuff in there.
Yeah, I keep mine simple. I try to keep it simple and compact and put links on there instead of detailing it out in the actual Confluence page so that it's not too long. So just, that was one thing as a Scrum Master, you're going to have to feel that out with your team. It's not going to be the same. It's not a cookie cutter approach. So good question. Kamal? Is it Kamel?
Yeah, Kamal is good. Thanks.
Kamel. Hi.
Yeah, thank you. This, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's really
Yes.
timely for me. I'm in the middle of constructing team agreements for both of my teams. So one thing I've observed in the past, there are folks who will take the team agreements very literal and becomes a point of contention instead of enhancing the work spirit. How do you mitigate that? And how do you what's the messaging you put out to the team around it to prevent it from getting too much static around it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can become a contention point. And so you're going to have to feel your way as a Scrum Master and coach them into bringing them back into something that would be more that the whole team would agree to within the content of the working agreement. If it gets off what I call off the rails, so to speak, and it's not one person's opinion versus the other, everyone has a voice and everyone needs to agree to it. You're just going to have to feel your way through that process. And that just comes with practice and time. I've been doing working agreements for probably 10 years now. This is nothing new to me. But the first time I did one, it was a stumbling block a little bit. So it does take practice and time to be able to do that. just as you do most anything within the Scrum Master type of line of work. So I feel confident if you follow some of the basics that I've given you as an example, that'll give you a good starting point, and then your team will come up with saying, we don't need to put that in there, or maybe we do, right?
Great, thank you.
Charlene.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Camille. So Charlene, it's been I don't know, it feels like we haven't been here an hour. It is really going by quickly.
It did.
So unfortunately, we're out of time, but do you have 5 minutes or so to stick around? Because you've got other people that are wanting to ask questions. So if
I
you need to
do.
leave, you can take off. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining us. This was a great session. So Charlene, you're just getting lots of compliments in the
Yeah.
chat.
Well,
So you have to
thank
be sure
you.
and look. But if you need to leave, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
And if you want to stick around with Charlene, we'll stick around for another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, thank you. I can stay around. I just want to mention before you go, please sign up for our Simply Agile community. We would love to have you. It's simplyagile.me. And we would love to have you join as a member and be part of our community.